So all of you are here with a dream of a great idea. Okay, you have the will to work a startup life. You have the intent to build a large team, a high performance team, and you have the desire to hit a sixer, as they say in cricket. You want to hit a sixer, and you have the hope to leave a legacy behind. Okay, so having said that, a great idea, will to work for a startup, building great teams, desire to make it big, and also leaving a legacy behind, okay, that people will remember you for the kind of startup that you have built, okay. What is the missing piece over here? And the missing piece is obviously the funding part of the startup, okay. A great idea backed by great passion is not enough to survive in a startup world, okay. If you are an entrepreneur who's looking to grow and scale, obviously you need funding, and we are going to precisely talk about that in today's session. So, before I get started, I want to throw this slide up over here, which talks about the 4 reasons why startups fail, okay? And most of the startup lessons will come from failures rather than successes, okay? And it is a cognitive bias to look at success and say, okay, this startup was successful because they did the following is incorrect, okay? What you should be doing is understanding the startups that have failed and find out why they failed and why you should not do what they did, in order to be successful, okay. So here are the 4 top reasons, and you will obviously see, running out of cash or failing to raise capital is the most important reason why startups fail. So why do startups really need to raise money? Okay, that's the question that comes to our mind. So there might be several reasons why a startup needs to raise money, okay. Let's say you have a minimum viable product, okay, which you want to turn into a solid product, which can offer which can address wider needs of your users. Or, you have a product which is showing slow success, and you want to go into what we call as a land grab situation. That means you want to grow as fast as you can before somebody else comes in, your competitor or your likely competitor, and tries to grab the same land, okay. So that's the second reason. The third reason could be, you want to be connected into the investor network, because investors will really help you connect with their portfolio companies, okay, using which you can use their distribution channels, their connections. And once you are in the investor network, the other investors start noticing you, which means your chances of raising funds later on, are very high. The fourth reason could be increased visibility. So until a startup is really funded, the startup does not get visibility. Once you're funded, you will have your LinkedIn post, your Facebook post saying that I got funded 2 million, I got funded 500,000, okay. And that really, what it means to your customers and to the other investors is this startup is worth looking at. Okay, this startup has some substance. Okay, so that kind of visibility really becomes important for you. And finally, bigger the better, right? When you're big, you can play the game which others cannot. Okay, when you have deep pockets, you can attract better talent. You can attract better partners. And so some of the startups are willing to give away a lot of their equity because they want to play the bigger game. Okay, the math is very simple. Whether you want 5 million, 100% of a 5 million company, or you want 20% of a 100 million company. Okay, so it's the math is very clear here. Okay, so bigger means dilution. Okay, and I'm not going to talk about dilution today, but it's a subject by itself. But it also means that you have better valuation, which means your chances of carrying home money are much better. So when should you go and start raising money? Okay, so when should a startup start raising money? So in order to understand this, I have to walk you through the journey of an early stage startup. Okay, so what an early stage startups go through, and how does a startup position itself for funding? Okay, so first part is the customer problem fit. Okay, do you have a problem that the customer is really interested in getting solved? Okay, so that is the customer discovery process, and it's what we call as the desirability. Does somebody desire to have this product? Okay, we call it customer problem fit. So what happens is, when you know that, yes, there are people who will benefit from this solution, I've spoken to them, they are interested, if I can build a product, your next step is obviously to build either a prototype, a mock, or an MVP, okay, a minimum viable product. What do you do with that? There are many ways to solve a problem, okay, and you obviously want to find out what is the right way to solve the problem. So you have certain solutions in mind, maybe one, maybe multiple solutions. So you got to check them out and find out which is the right solution, okay, which is the right solution that provides the right experience to the customer. So that's where we come to the problem solution fit, okay. Does your solution address the problem, solve the problem properly? Okay, this is the solution discovery process, okay. So with this, you come to the next step, that is the feasibility, okay. Yes, I thought of this idea, I'm able to build it, okay, it is feasible, it is not just a fig of my imagination, okay. Next, you go to building a marketable product, okay, and you might start with a smaller version of your product called a minimum marketable product, a beta, okay, or you can call version 1.x of the product. This kind of a product will have very narrow functionality, but it will be complete in all respects, okay. So that's what we call as version 1.x. What are you trying to do over here? You're trying to now take the product to the market and see if people are going to buy that product really, okay. So here is where you will look at your viability, okay. So am I going to make enough money by selling this product? Will I be able to sustain my company, okay? Will I be able to, not today but tomorrow, not tomorrow but day after, be profitable with this kind of a solution that I'm taking to the market? So that is what we typically call as product market fit. And the product market fit is the holy grail of all early stage startups. So when you are in an early stage, all that you're trying to do is, how do I get to my product market fit? Okay. Once you get to your product market fit, you are all set to go into what we call as the growth stage. Okay. So this will be your biggest struggle. And most of the startups go through an iterative process over here until they reach their product market fit. So what is a product market fit? Okay. So if you look at this, the desirability is addressing the market. Okay. Does the market want it? The feasibility is about your product, right? So a lot of people stop here. They say that, okay, I have a product market fit. I have a product that meets the market. No, that's not enough, because you have to also look at the monetization angle. Okay. So can I monetize based on this product and this market that I have? So that's the product market fit, okay, that we talk about. So when we talk of monetization, a lot of people offer free services, right? So it is not always monetization in terms of money. It could be monetization in terms of money. It could be in data. Google is a great example, right? They collect a lot of data and try to monetize that data. Okay, so it's not the primary objective is to have a lot of people collect a lot of data, and then they figure out how to monetize that. So it could be money, it could be time that you spend, the engagement as we call, or it could be your social currency. So what is social currency? We take an example of WhatsApp. Okay, so in WhatsApp, what's happening is, you're forwarding your messages, there is an engagement, and the users are creating the content and users are sharing the content. But in turn, you have had access to a lot of data. Okay, you have an engaged customer base that you can monetize in some way. Okay, so there is no silver bullet to product market fit. Okay, and that's why this is a very important topic for every early stage startup. Only 7% of the companies are able to find it in the first go. Okay, others have to keep going through a cycle of pivots and iterations until they come to a good product market fit. So how do you know that you have reached a product market fit? Okay, so sometimes people get very false signals of product market fit. They see that few of the people have started buying their product. Okay, or they pump in a lot of money in Facebook or Google ads and so on, or they pump in a lot of money in trying to outreach to the customers via email to talk about their product, like a SaaS product and so on. And then suddenly they experience that, yes, some people are coming to them and few of them are buying that. Okay, but moment they stop advertising, the inflow stops. Okay, the flow of the leads that is coming in stops. Okay, so that is not a product market fit. Okay, so in a product market fit, what happens is the product demonstrates the capability of organically growing. Okay, so that's a product market fit. So once the product shows the ability to grow organically, what it means is there is a word of mouth happening, there is a referral happening, people are talking about your product, people are liking your product. That's how more and more people are using your product, and your current customers are more engaged in your product. Okay, and this is where you can now step on the gas. Okay, and scale your company, and there are various ways to scale the company. So this is the holy grail of product market fit that every early stage startup should think about. Okay. So the next question is, when should you start fundraising? Okay, what is the right time to raise the funds? Okay, so I'll take a few scenarios also to show you how this whole thing works. But by and large, once you have validated the problem, you have demonstrated the demand, that there is a demand for my product. Okay, it's not a product that I have built out of my passion and fancy and nobody is wanting to use it, right? When you see these two things, you have a sound reason to speak to an investor and convince them to fund you, not before that. When to wait for funding? Okay, it's is this the right time to fund, or should I wait for funding? The more you delay your funding, sometimes the better it could be, because you are building the company and your company is going to increase its valuation over a period of time. So you are going to give away less equity for the same amount of funding which you would have otherwise given. Okay, so suppose I raise funding now, okay, and I raise funding after I've generated more customer interest, my valuation is going to be more. Okay, so I'm going to give maybe 10% of my equity for $1 million rather than giving 20% of my equity for $1 million. Okay, and obviously when you have resources to bootstrap, you have your own resources which you have invested in the company, and there is only a marginal increase that is required, which your current adoption can fund. You might want to wait for funding, but there is a risk also. Okay, so the next question is when not to wait for fundraising. Okay, so the math is very simple, what we call as the runway. The runway is the amount of money that you have left, and how long can you survive with that funding? Okay, given your projections, given your growth rates, and so on. So if you have a very short runway, okay, obviously you cannot base on fundraising. You have to go out and raise the funds. Okay, or you think that you now need investors with the right portfolios to engage with you, so that you can get introduced to these other portfolios and you can grow into that ecosystem. Okay, so that's when you do not want to wait for fundraising. So usually, fundraising is not an exercise where you can talk to 3 or 5 people and one of them will put money in your company. It's absolutely not like that. Okay, you have to talk to a lot of investors, okay, before you can find one who really aligns with your thought process, who really sees value in what you're offering, and then gives you funding. Okay, so let's look at some of the key inflection points of an early stage startup. Okay, so do we know what problem we are solving? Like we said, customer problem fit, right? Does it actually work? Is your solution really working? Is there a problem solution fit? Okay, will someone pay for your product? Okay, so as you go through these inflection points, your valuation keeps on increasing because you are reducing the risk of your startup survival. Okay, so if you don't know what problem you are solving, you're still struggling to find out the problem. You have tried multiple things. Your fundability is very, very poor. Okay, as against you have a solution that works, and still more if people like your solution, still more if not just one person or 2 people, but many people are wanting to buy your solution. Okay, so 2 kinds of funding will happen over here. This is where you will be able to raise money from friends and families and angel investors. Okay, so they are the ones who are willing to bet on you at a very early stage. Okay, that they have seen, okay, this solution really works. All that he has got to do is find out a monetization angle. A lot of angels will be interested in funding a company at this stage. Particularly, you are showing that promise that yes, this is monetizable. Okay. The second stage obviously is when you have demonstrated that yes, more and more people are willing to pay and buy my product. Okay, so that's when you go into a round which we call as the seed round. Okay, so earlier the seed round used to be the first round because it was seeding a company. No longer, the whole terminology has changed over the last 10-12 years since 2008. Okay, so seed round is what used to be the Series A round in the early days. Now it's called the seed round. It's anywhere from 750K or 1 million to about 3 million. Okay, so that's your seed round. And once you are gone past that, then you come into growth stage. You found a product market fit, more and more people are buying, you have the money to grow, and that's where you will go into a growth stage. Okay, and that's a completely different management of the startup. You are in an exploratory stage. Now you will go into what we call as an execution stage. Okay, we'll not talk about growth in today's session. So how do you plan to fund your startup? Okay, so all of you must be wondering. People say go to VCs. People say you have heard things like seed. You have heard things like angels and all that. So how do you plan to fund your startup? So I'm going to walk you through the different avenues available to you to fund your startup. Okay, so we will start right from the first one, that is the founder's capital. Okay, so what does the founders capital tell me? If some startup comes to me and says, I want some money, I have this very nice idea and some people are buying it, see a great potential for this. Okay, so I said that how much money have you put in the company? Okay, so this will be my first question. So if you are very sure, you have a strong conviction about your idea and that it is going to work, and you have tested it out, if you have put some capital in it, then investors see this as your skin in the game. Okay, it demonstrates your practicality and the passion. It's not just that I have this passion to build something like this. They said, okay, he's putting your money where his mouth is. Okay, so he's a guy that I should really look at. The second source is your friends and family. Okay, and this is a very important milestone, in my opinion, when you are raising your money. What happens is a lot of founders are not very confident of asking somebody for money. Okay, they feel very shy. How can I go and ask him for money? Okay, so asking your friends and family is very easy, right? Because they are friends, they are your family. So, but what happens in the process is, you have demonstrated your ability to ask for money. You have demonstrated your ability to make others believe in your vision. Okay, so these are the two very critical factors when it comes to friends and family. So, if founder has put some of his money, if friends and family have seen value in it and put money, obviously, the startup is improving its fundability in the eyes of the investors. The third option, obviously, is to go to incubators or accelerators. What accelerators will do is they will take some percentage of your equity and they will give you small funding. Okay, something like, I'm going to talk in US terms, $50,000 or $100,000. But in India also, I've seen companies raise a significant amount of money through acceleration programs. What acceleration programs will do for you is they will run through a standard process of preparing your company for funding. Okay, so they will improve your fundability. So they will run you through things like how to create your value propositions, how to create your business models, how to build your go-to-market strategy. They will go through variety of things, competitive landscape and so on. And in the process, they will try to de-risk your business. Okay, so that's where there are great advantages in going to incubators and startups. Where you're also going to meet like-minded founders. Okay, you're going to meet a group of mentors. You're able to talk to them. The more you socialize your idea, the more you socialize your challenges, the more you'll be able to discover solutions to them. Okay. And obviously, there are grants and government schemes that you should try to tap into. Okay, and I see a lot of founders ignore this completely. Okay, so there are a lot of grants and government schemes. Keep your eyes open. Okay, there's a lot of money sitting out there. Okay, that you can tap into. And why these grants and schemes are important? Because they are non-dilutive funding. Okay, they do not dilute your equity in the company. Okay, so these are just grants given to you. So who are the likely candidates who can raise this money from government schemes and grants? Okay, one is the impact companies. They have some social impact, social entrepreneurship. Okay, so they have some philanthropic objective. Those are the companies that can go for some of these grants. Some of the grants are also granted to companies that are doing some kind of research, okay, and feasibility into a new technology or new application of the technology, like space and so on. So there are a lot of grants available. Okay, in fact, SpaceX of Elon Musk, started with a very large grant. Okay, and he knew where to tap into that grant. Okay, then there are also government schemes to promote high impact R&D. Okay, or to take certain technology which is at a very raw level and try to commercialize it. Okay, so there are a lot of there's a lot of funding available for that also. I think in India also there are a lot of funding available to commercialize in technology. Okay, there are funding schemes in agri-tech. Okay, there are funding schemes available for IoT kind of startups and so on. Okay, where you can show commercialization which is of use to the country, its population. So there's some thought behind that, and the government is always trying to promote a few technologies. Okay, so those are the ones that you will tap into. Then comes your crowdfunding. Typically, if you're a hardware startup trying to make a device, like let's say you are making a device, which I can put at my back, and it will tell me about my posture. Okay, absolutely a great candidate for you is to go for crowdfunding. Okay, where you can even raise the money even before building the entire product. Okay, just on the promise of the product, showing the prototype, saying that yes, I have done all this, it is working, this is my proof. All I need is the money to to do the industrial design and manufacture it. Okay, and people will try to give you advanced orders in what we call as the crowdfunding. Then there is a source of funding called as equity crowdfunding. So nowadays there are a lot of sites, where a lot of people want to invest in startups, right? Because there's so much of magic happening out there in the world, and people don't want to be left behind. So a lot of people, instead of going to the stock market and investing, also want to make smaller investment in startups. Okay, but they have no idea which startup to invest in and so on. So they are like, if somebody is leading, I will go and follow that. So this is what we call as the process of syndication. Okay, where a lot of small investors come together, form a big sum of money, and that gets invested into a startup. Okay, the same syndicate paradigm has been moved online, which is called as equity crowdfunding. Okay, or virtual small investment syndicates. Then this becomes your really important funding milestone, the angel funding. Okay, so now you have a validated idea, you have built MVP, you are also showing an early adoption. Okay, you are showing signs of people really buying, but it is hard. You have to convince people, but people buy. When they buy, they love your product. Okay, angels are going to help you through that process. Okay, and this can be business angels. So there are people who have had great exits, like Bansals. They invested a lot of money. Even the other companies, like I forget the name of the company, mobile advertising company. Their founders have invested in a lot of startups. So those are the business angels, who will invest. And there are other angels, who are basic investors. Okay, and willing to make the small investments. Okay, so there are those angels that you can really look at. And finally, for an early stage startup comes the seed funding. Okay, so here you have seen early customer success. Okay, and you are driving towards the product market fit, and you need some impetus. Okay, some cash infusion to get to that product market fit and show that this is for real. Okay, so that's your seed fund. Okay, so in short, as Dr. Palkar said at the beginning of the session, there are basically these four modes of funding, and one is bootstrapping, of course. So that is your own investment, family and friends, crowdfunding. You're not going to some real serious investors until then. Then you can go to the startup platforms like incubators, accelerators. You can look at grants. These are startup platforms, okay, that can give you funding. Then you go to the equity sources, okay, which are real investors, okay. So in your case, you'll be only looking at angel investors and seed investors. You will not talk to venture capitalists or private equity firms, okay. So they will come when your ticket size is high. You're talking about raising 5 million, 7 million, 10 million. Okay, that's the time that they will come in. And obviously, there are also other sources of funding, which are non-equity, non-startup platform funding, which come from debt sources. People are willing to give you loans. Okay, so let's say your startup has a lot of manufacturing to be done. Okay, so in which case, you might require a working capital, to procure your materials and so on. So there are sources that are that are good at funding your working capital. Okay, there are sources that are good at doing what we call as revenue-based funding. Okay, so here I have to give you an example of a company that I exited last year. Okay, this is a company in document signature space. So we raised zero capital in this company. Okay, so this company grew from 100K in revenue. It's a SaaS product, just like DocuSign, okay, or Panda Docs and so on. Okay, went to 500,000. Okay, and then I told them you have to triple your revenue now, go to 1.5 million. They went straight to 2 million, and then the pandemic hit, and the opportunities opened up. Okay, because everybody was going digital. Okay, so this is the company when they had 100K, they wanted to go and raise money. Okay, and 100K of ARR, okay, annual recurring revenue. They wanted to go and raise money, but no investor would really invest in this company, primarily because it was a husband-wife company. Okay, so it is not a company of 3-4 founders who know each other. Okay, this is what we call in US as a mom and pop shop. Okay, so mom and pop shops don't get easily funded. Okay, so they could not raise funding. They came to me. They said that, what do we do? So I said, there is revenue-based funding. You have 100K revenue. You should be able to get some funding. So they got 50K funding based on that revenue, based on that projection and so on. Okay. When the revenue, with that funding, when the revenue hit 500K, okay, the revenue-based financing company came to them and said, okay, now we want to fund you more. Okay, do you have the appetite? So they said, oh, yeah. Let's take the money. So they took another 300K and built the company. So this is how they built the company. And finally, when they exited the company, since they did not have any investors, okay, they had only advisors like me and maybe a couple other, who had taken some equity. They went laughing to their bank with 95% equity. With 95% equity, they didn't have to share that with anybody else. So they were laughing their way to the bank. Okay, so this is a good example of companies that can be run very intelligently, very creatively, without even raising any dime. So let's, we have spoken all about the startup and the avenues to funding and all that, but we have to get ourselves in the shoes of the investor. Okay, so how do investors look at funding? So let me ask you this question: how would you invest $10 million? Okay, if you had $10 million and you wanted to invest that, how would you invest? Okay, you have two options. Okay, the first option is to make $1 million investment. So you're spreading the risk. Okay, that can give you, each investment can give you 2x return. Okay, so that's what you're going for. Okay, maybe some may not work, most of them will work, but that's the kind of return that you will get. The option 2 is you want to invest in 10 companies, but you don't care losing money on 7 of them, but you want to make 10x on the remaining companies. So when you pick your portfolio of companies, you're always going to look for those companies that can give me a 10x return on my investment. So if I'm investing $1 million now, I should exit with a $10 million. If I'm investing 100K, I should exit with 1 million. Okay. So, but these companies are very aggressive. Okay. So they are high risk takers. Okay. And their math is very simple. Okay. When I pick this company, I don't care if seven of them I don't make money on. Okay. But the three of them I make money on will cover my entire portfolio. So that's the logic that they go with. So usually what happens is one third of their companies fail, one third of their companies just return the principal, and the remaining one third give them the 10x return, and it beats all the math of these bankers. Okay, so that's the venture capital, very adventurous investment, risk taking mentality, and that's why it is called the venture capital. Okay, so this is how the bankers will think, and this is how the VCs will think. So you, as an investor, when you go to an investor, he's always or she is always thinking of a home run, or what we call a sixer in India, right? So she's always looking for that golden nugget that can give her 10x return. And once she has that fair amount of confidence that this looks like a 10x return company, okay, I'm willing to look at investing into this company. So now the question is, how do you make investor buy into your vision? You have shown this 10x opportunity, but how do you make the investor buy into your vision? So there are three things which are vitally important when you pitch your company to an investor. The first one is the opportunity. Okay, you have to show that you have discovered a real opportunity. You just cannot be blowing smoke. Okay, you have to show that yes, this opportunity is for real. I validated with the company, and the timing is real. So there are two things that you look for over here: the technology of the idea and the timing. The timing has to be perfect. Okay, so let me give you an example of Airbnb. Okay, so Airbnb started in 2008. Okay, so when they went around, most of the investors turned them down. Okay, they said, okay, who is going to allow a stranger to sleep in your house? Okay, so none of the major investors really funded them. Okay, but there are some investors which really took fancy to the idea because the country was going through a downturn. Okay, people didn't have money to pay rents. Okay, and people didn't have money to pay rents. They were willing to accommodate a stranger, okay, who was a source of income for them to pay their rents and continue to stay there. Okay, so that's where Airbnb took off. Okay, so timing is really important. Okay, there are several examples of this timing. Okay, so there was a startup for grocery delivery. Okay, called Webvan, that started somewhere around 2002 2003 time frame, and it took about hundreds of millions of investors' money and went flat. Okay, but a similar startup called Instacart, okay, has become a unicorn, right? It's a $1 billion company. Okay, why is that? Because the Instacart timing was right. Okay, you had the smartphones, ability of people to operate the smartphones, the digital chain, okay, and supply chain, and people willing to do on online purchases. The e-commerce had taken off, and that's where the timing is really important. So when you talk about this opportunity, what the investor is going to look at is this idea for real, and is the timing right for this idea? The next is the growth potential. You have to show that your idea, your sapling can grow into a nice tree that will bear fruits. Okay, so it can grow significantly in a period of about 5 years, because 5 years is the time frame that the investors will look at in terms of measuring your company, because usually the funds are about 10-year cycle, so they want to do a 2 times turn. So they want to look at 5 years. If your company is doing extremely well, okay, they will further do a follow-on investment with you and stay with you for a few more years. Okay, but you have to show that you have growth potential. What does that mean? That means you have a very large market size. Okay, you have heard of TAM, SAM, SOM. Okay, so the total available market or addressable market has to be very large. Okay, it has to be in excess of, let's say, $1 billion or so. Okay, so then it makes sense to them that yes, they can build a company which is $100 million company, of which I take a percentage and I can make that good money. The other thing that they're going to look in your growth potential are the market threats. Okay, because your growth can be threatened by a variety of things. There could be economic reasons why your growth is stinted. There could be social reasons. There could be regulatory reasons. There could be technological reasons. New technology comes and disrupts you completely. Okay, a new regulation comes in and says, okay, no more of that money transfer. You have to use UPI. Okay, you could get disrupted, or your growth potential could get stinted. Or there are factors beyond your control, like COVID, right? COVID hit. What happened? Most of this domestic money transfer companies, where you would go to a store and do the transfer, came into serious trouble because people were not able to go to the stores. The stores were not open, and they could not do the domestic money transfer. Okay, so look at the threats, and because the investor is going to look at the threats and be able to have a mitigation plan, okay, that you can present to the investor in if there is a question of threat scenarios with you. Okay, so when you talk of growth, it is not a product talk. Okay, it is about how you build a business. Okay, so a lot of founders get mired into the technology and the product and things like that. Okay, the investors are least interested in that part of the business. They're more interested in, can you build a big business out of that product? Okay. So not just a business, can you build a big business out of that product? That's what they are looking at. Okay. And only when you show that there is a potential to build big business, then they are interested in lending their ears to you. And finally, the investors are going to look at your execution capability. Okay. So here we talk in terms of team. Okay. Why is your team the best team to do the startup? Okay, so that's where you will come in terms of your team experiences, your team chemistry, that is capable of seizing this opportunity. And so execution means two things. One is team, obviously, that can take that sapling to the tree which bears fruits, but also the team is capable of getting traction. So two T's again here: team and traction. Okay, so in these three scenarios, you saw the first one was tech and timing, the second one was TAM and threats, and the third one is team and traction. Okay, so that's how you will talk to the investors. Okay, so now with all this, you are ready to pitch to an investor. Okay, so when you go to pitch to an investor, there are very standard, typical questions that the investor is going to ask you. Right? Do you have evidence that customers want it? How big is your market? Is that market large enough? He's going to look at your team backgrounds, your team chemistry, where did you guys meet, and so on. Very important. And also how the founders are sharing their equity amongst themselves. Okay, is there one founder who's taking 90% of the equity and giving only 5% to the other two founders? Okay, so the other two founders may not have enough motivation to stay when the game becomes bigger, right? What is the product differentiation? Obviously, what's your business model? How do you make money? And the risks. Okay, so all the things that I've covered over here, okay, earlier, are the kind of questions that the investor is going to ask you. So when you go to an investor, you must think like an investor. Okay, and that's how you should prepare your pitch to the investor. Put yourself in the investor's shoe and say that, okay, if somebody comes to me with this proposal to raise money, what am I going to look at? Will I really fund this? Why would I fund this? And if I'm funding this, will I multiply by my money 10 times or not? Okay, in a period of 5 years. So always think like an investor. And what do investors think like? Okay, they have to make this decision, right? Whether to invest or not to invest. Okay, so how do they make that decision? Market attractiveness, your product differentiation. Okay, that tells them what is the expected return you can get. So market attractiveness is the size of the product, the segment that you're addressing, accessibility to that market, that how easy it is to reach that market, what are the barriers to reach that market, and have these people overcome those barriers. Then product differentiation. How are you different from others? Are you marginally different? Are you 10x different? Or are you completely disrupting a space? Okay. So all these things will lead them to look at what could be an expected return from this company. Then they are going to look at the negative aspects of the company, right? What if the team does not get along with each other? What if the founders start dropping out? Okay, what if the founders are not capable of executing? Okay, are these founders mature enough to understand that yes, if I'm not able to do the job, let me move aside and let the investors bring a professional management to run the company, because ultimately I have the equity. I am interested in growing my equity as the company runs, right? So they will look at the founders maturity in these areas. But more important is if the same team can really move from an early into growth stage. That means from the process of being in an exploratory mode to going into a process of a missionary execution mode. Okay. And finally, what have you done to address the threats? Okay. How well can the founders think creatively to resist threats that might come along their way? And the threats will always be there. Okay. There will be threats, there is never a smooth ride. It's a roller coaster. But your ability to deal with them is what is really important. And that's their perceived risk. And they will put these two together, the expected returns versus the perceived risk. And that's where they will make the decision to invest. So when you embark on this path, okay, get ready to hear many no's. Okay, it's not easy for a lot of people to accept rejections. Okay, so you have to learn how to understand and embrace rejections. Okay, you have to learn from the rejection. This is the hallmark of a good entrepreneur. Okay, and from an investor's perspective, they have to kiss 1,000 frogs to find a prince. Okay, so out of the 100 companies I see as an investor, I may decide to invest in one company. Okay, so that's how many companies one has to see. Okay, so typically every week I run through at least about 15 to 20 companies. Okay, so I scan them, I talk to a few. That's the thing that we keep doing all the time. Okay, but don't be worried of the no's, because it takes only one yes to have a successful funding round. Okay, and your first successful funding round is something that you can build upon as you grow. Okay, thank you. So I will leave this open to questions now, if you have any.
Great. I think it was very insightful and eye-opener for a lot of people here. So, questions from the audience?
I have one question.
Yes.
Good morning. Or probably good evening for you.
Good morning.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
my question is a very simple one. For the crowdfunding, we have a lot of crowdfunding thoughts going on, but practically in India, it's very difficult to get crowdfunding. Friends, family is very much okay because we as a society are very much connected to each other. People trust each other. But while going towards crowdfunding, we see a lot of difficulties. Can you guide on that part, please?
So what is the difficulty you are facing in crowdfunding? Because I have a few companies, we have done crowdfunding very successfully. What is the difficulty you are facing?
Basically to reach out them and pitch it out. We see Western world doing that very often, but not in India that often. I'm trying to do that, but
Okay.
I need more guidance out of that.
Quickly,
Yeah,
tell
so
you in one line what you do.
let me be clear what is.
He can also tell you in one line what he does, maybe, if that's helpful.
Okay, right now I am into business of renting travel bag. That is my business, and this is e-commerce based platform where we give rental assets to travelers.
Okay, so so there are a lot of crowdfunding companies. Okay, so crowdfunding happens online, but your company, which is renting the bags, right? So you rent the bag and take it back, correct?
Yes, they do that. Yeah.
So that may not be a good candidate for crowdfunding. Let me tell you why. Okay, because if you are making a very special travel bag, okay, very unique kind of travel bag, and that's a good candidate for crowdfunding. Okay, so if you are making a good travel bag that you're selling to somebody, okay, then what you do is you actually show that product, build a product that you can showcase that yes, I am capable of building that product. And there are crowdfunding sites that are available. Okay, so there are sites in India and there are sites in the US also. So you go and upload upload about your company there, show your product video, okay, show your your selling pitch of that product, okay. And then you what you do in that is you say that, okay, I'm raising about $15,000, okay, and in that $15,000 I'm going to build about 1,500 or 150 bags, okay, and these bags are going to be made available to people who put money in this company, okay. So for that $15,000 you say that the people who put about $10, okay, will get a badge from me saying that yes, I funded this company and I'm proud of this company, okay. So there are some people who will just support, they don't want anything back from you, but they like the idea, they want to put that money on that idea, okay. Then you will say, okay, somebody puts $100 in my company, okay, when my product comes out in the market, I will give them a 50% discount coupon, okay. Then if somebody puts, let's say, $300 in my company, I'm going to give him 3 bags or 2 bags, okay. So that is how the crowdfunding really happens, okay. So it is basically meant for products that you are selling, okay. That basically meant for your product is a product, okay. You're using it and you're reusing it and you're reusing it, okay. So that may not be a good candidate for crowdfunding as such. What might be you might be a good candidate for what we call as crowd equity funding. Crowd equity funding, okay. So you go to a company called republic.co, okay, republic.co. So if you go to a lot of, I've seen a lot of Indian companies have raised big money over there, okay. People have raised as much as $1 million on republic.co, or maybe even more, okay. And I've seen people raise that money in less than a month, okay, because their product is so compelling, okay. They have attained some traction, and so these people really don't want to go to VCs and all that, because VCs don't understand what they're talking about, okay. It's a great idea, but it's beyond that VC pitch, okay. So they reach out to the smaller investors. So republic.co, you make your pitch there, and people will look at funding. So first thing that I would recommend you to do is study similar companies that have raised money. Look at what presentations they did, okay, who are successful in that. Look at the companies like you that did not raise money, okay. Find out what mistakes they did, okay. So you don't want to do those mistakes, right? And then you come up, and there are certain experts available who will actually help you design your entire page there, a funding page. You will get a funding page where the entire pitch deck which we talk about actually gets there, and a lot of product selling is done over there, and showing your product is done over there. So that is typically what we call as equity crowdfunding. Okay, so 2 types, right? One is a product, physical product that people want to buy. Like let's say you prepare lenses, okay, different kinds of lenses that people can buy, okay. Then you can go there, okay. Or you are making a virtual reality gear, okay, which is completely unique and different. You can go to those sites. So 2 sites very clearly: conventional crowdfunding site and equity crowdfunding site. Equity crowdfunding site is where anybody can go and raise money, okay. Conventional crowdfunding sites is where you have a product that is under development, okay. You are making a future promise. So basically it is like taking pre-orders on a product yet to be delivered. Any other questions?
Yes, there is one more question there. Yeah. So please go ahead.
Sudhir, good morning. We are very happy to have your thoughts given today, and I really thank you for that. Now, my only question is the last sentence you used on the slide. Yes, about that last sentence. Could you tell me if the yes is there, then definitely you're going to be successful. And if there is no yes, then how can you make it yes? Last sentence of your slide.
So So here is what you have to do. Okay, so you have to make your startup fundable. Moment you make your startup fundable, you will get an yes. Okay, or the chances of getting a yes are improved significantly. Okay, so I today I'm not covering that, but I do a session actually where I show how to improve the fundability of your startup. Okay, so how can you go from being a non-fundable startup, to go through a fundable startup? And if you look at typically what acceleration programs are supposed to do is to improve your fundability. Okay, so there are many things that get ignored if you're not making a startup fundable. Like there are very simple things like, are you able to articulate a value proposition properly? A lot of people fail to explain what their product is. Okay, if you're not able to do that, there's no way you'll get that, right? The second thing is, for example, I'm just throw a couple of examples at you. Okay, the second thing is the segmentation. Okay, are you targeting the right segment? Okay, your product may be useful, but it is useful for another segment or another use case which you have not thought of. Okay, so if you look at the stories of Instagram and all these companies, they were not designed like Slack. Okay, Slack as a company was never started as a communication tool. Okay, Slack was a company was started as a gaming service, right? And that game failed miserably. Okay, and since their team was distributed all over the world, they had built a homegrown tool to communicate with each other. Okay, and when they went to return their money to Axel partners, saying that you're 5 million, I'm going to return to you. Okay, I spent the remaining money, but this is what is left. So the VC told him, don't return. You are a good founder. I know you'll figure things out. Okay, so he says, I have this communication tool, and I think it could be a great value. He says, go for it, and that turned into Slack, right? So, lot of startups, need, what you start with is not really what you're going to end with. Okay, you are going through a series of pivots, and that is what are you doing in the process? You are going to improve your fundability. Okay, and how do you improve your fundability? You are able to articulate the product well to your customers, to your investors. You are able to do a right go-to-market strategy. Okay, you are able to do a right market penetration expansion. So there are so many things that are associated, which a good acceleration program should actually cover. And at the end of the day, make you a shiny object, which the investors will really love talking to. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Fantastic.
Ma'am, I have got a question.
Yeah, please go ahead, Shubham.
Yes. Hi, good evening, sir.
Yeah, feel free, huh? Any question, no issues. Okay, don't hold yourself back. Okay, whatever is in your mind, just come out with it.
So I've got 3 questions for you now. And first is for many startups, like you said, burning money is an ongoing process. If they stop spending on Google ads, Instagram ads, like many of the online platforms, they'll be out of business. For example, edtech business. Companies, how do you suggest them a go-to-market strategy or a survival strategy? This is the first question.
So, yeah.
Okay, one by one, or if you want me to give all the 3 at a
No. Good. So just elaborate your first question. You're talking about a mobile advertising company.
Right. So let's say a tech company, and in the tech company, if you're not spending money on Google ads or Instagram ads to reach out to the customers, you're not getting a repeat business.
Correct.
Right. So how do you suggest
Correct.
a go-to-market strategy or a survival for those companies?
Correct. So you said ed tech, right? Educational technology,
Educational tech,
right?
yes.
Okay, clear. Okay, so let me tell you over here. Okay, so and this is really a good question in the sense why it is a good question is, when you go to the investor, he's going to ask you, okay, how are you going to get people to use your platform? And your answer is, oh, I will go through Google ads. Okay, moment you say that, he will shut you down. He is not going to invest in you. Let me tell you that, okay? Because that's not what I want to hear. I want to hear how creative is this guy in terms of reaching out to his market and convincing them, okay? So you have to find what we call as a reach out strategy. How am I going to reach out to the market? And then you have to find a strategy of viral loops. Okay, how am I going to make my service viral, or how am I going to leverage word of mouth, WOM as we call it, right? Okay, how am I going to leverage? Now this will depend on a specific startup. Okay, how it is. So I'll again give you an example of Airbnb. Okay, so let's come to that same example. So we have a classified list over here in the US called as Craigslist, CRAIGS, Craigslist. So Craig is the man who built that list. Okay, that company is unicorn by itself. So what everybody used to go and do classified on that. Okay, and there are various types of classifieds that would appear on Craigslist, like I want to rent a room. I want to rent a room for 3 days. Okay. I want to give out my room on rent. All those kind of ads. So what they did was they wrote a crawler which could go through and look at the people who wanted to rent and people who wanted to take things on rent. Okay, for short term STR as we call it, short term rental. Okay. So they went and scraped that whole damn thing, and they blasted them. That was their reach strategy, to reach out to people. Okay. And moment they reached that, they started seeing the adoption. Okay. And moment they started seeing the adoption, they started the word of mouth. Oh, there is this service like this, which works very well. Okay. I stayed there. It was very great, and, but, the host says, oh, last time somebody came, he broke my glasses, how do I cater for that? So Airbnb says, okay, now I'll give insurance. Okay, so they started giving insurance, and that's how the company grew. Okay, so you have to find that uniqueness in your strategy, okay, in your go-to-market strategy. So that is important, and one really has to sit through and go through or do a deep dive on the startup to understand what could be that unique strategy. And it is not that there is one size fits all. Okay, you will have to go through a lot of iterative process. Okay, oh, I think this will work, so you try that out, it did not work. Okay, try something else, and suddenly you'll find something that works. Okay, and that's your creative strategy, and you go and tell them, the best thing in case of an edtech that the investors want to listen is, oh, I already have this 1,000 students coming to me, okay, and now this will build to 10,000, and I have got this 1,000 students spending $0. This is what he wants to hear. And if you've shown that I could get this 1,000 without spending a dime, just with organic keywords, okay, I could get that, and doing my SEO properly, okay, not doing Google ads. Okay, that's what he wants to learn. And he says, okay, now that I have 1,000, I have found this network that I can use to multiply and spread my reach to reach out to these other prospects.
Got it. Thank you. So it answered my third question. The second one which remains is in the early stage, whether CCPS or the CCDS, whether investors, they prefer in the early stage or they go for it in the later stage of the funding.
Which investors?
Be it angel investors or venture funds. In the crowdfunding.
Yeah. So you saw my presentation today. Okay, up to seed is early stage. Okay, after seed, that is the venture capitalist, private equity. That those are all later stage. What we call as institutional investors. Okay, so institutional investors come later on. Okay, at an early stage, when you have only 1,000 customers, okay, and you are still not finding a product market fit, you don't have a go-to-market strategy, you go to Sequoia, they're not even going to entertain you, right? You'll not even get the first meeting there. But if you have built something and you are saying that, okay, I'm already doing a $3 million business, I need $10 million to take this 3 million to 10 million, okay, so people will wake up and listen to you. The most important thing for any investor is traction. Traction beats everything. Okay. Once you get traction, nobody is going to ask you what does your product do, what it looks like, nothing. Okay. And then the other thing that you can do is you define a product category yourself. Okay, don't, because see, investors will try to slot you into a product category, right? Like just now you said I'm a tech. You slotted yourself in the tech product category. Differentiate yourself. Don't say I'm a tech, right? I don't know your startup. Otherwise, we have discussed. Okay, I'm not a tech. I'm that small sliver in a tech, which is very, very vertically focused, which is very specialized, that nobody else is doing. That's where I'm going. Okay. So you create your own category, you give it a category name. Okay. And so in my presentation, I would say, okay, you have seen a lot of red tech companies. Okay, here is a company in that space, but it is not in the same category. Okay, I'm defining my own category. Okay. So this is again how you articulate your value proposition, right? How you create your marketing category.
Great. Thank you so much.
Great, fantastic. I think the circle is complete today with whatever we learned yesterday, where we had the first discussion, which was around value proposition, where we had business model canvas, where we had inputs on that yesterday. We had some successful startups who came and spoke to you yesterday evening, who have gone in for Series A, and now again we with Sudhir, who has again brought us to the aspect that it is all about the business, the traction that leads to the investment. So great, fantastic, and I must take this opportunity to thank Sudhir for also being a part of integral system in the university and helping few of my startups. And I'm sure in days to come we'll have a great announcement to speak to everyone in this room and also to the city of Pune on a great um, journey that we have embarked into jointly with one of these startups. Thank you, Sudhir, so much. I know it is really late for you in the night, and we stay connected. Thank you so
Thank
much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I have to tell these people that last presentation I did, over here for this Pune University, there was a very interesting startup that I took fancy to. Okay, and I'm advising that startup right now. So that's why I was eagerly looking forward to this presentation again. Maybe I will find a golden nugget right here amongst all these people who are sitting over here.
I know. I will get you
Okay.
connected to them because this is a very open forum where we have a lot of people. But definitely will connect you to a few good nuggets very shortly. I guess I will connect with you in the month of April on that. So thank you so much. And you're all going to be meeting that startup today afternoon. Cogni Element, you're going to be meeting him. And I'm sure we will have a lot to learn from them. Thank you so much.